I thought it was just a blind date. Then she brought her daughter. The moment Marcus saw the woman walk through the restaurant door with a little girl clutching her hand, his stomach dropped straight to the floor. He had rehearsed 100 versions of this evening in his mind, the awkward handshake, the polite small talk, the carefully chosen words designed to make a good first impression, but not one single version had included a child with wide brown eyes and a butterfly clip in her hair, staring up at him like she was trying to decide whether or not he was safe. If you believe in kindness and second chances, hit that like button right now, drop a comment below, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House, because every story we tell is a reminder that love still exists in this world. Marcus had agreed to the blind date only because his coworker Priya had spent 3 solid weeks begging him. He was 38 years old, 2 years removed from a quiet divorce that had left him living in a too large apartment with too many unopened wine glasses and a houseplant he kept forgetting to water. He wasn't broken, not exactly, but he was the kind of man who had started eating dinner standing over the kitchen sink because setting the table for one felt like an act of defeat. Priya had described the woman simply. Her name was Celeste, she was warm and funny and worked as a nurse, and she deserved someone patient and good. Marcus had nodded along and said yes before he could talk himself out of it. But Priya had not mentioned the daughter. Celeste spotted him immediately, and something in her expression flickered, a brief storm of worry passing across her face before she replaced it with a smile that was equal parts warmth and apology. She was beautiful in the kind of way that felt unperformed, her dark hair pulled back simply, a green dress that looked like she had chosen it quickly but still somehow perfectly. She walked toward him with a steadiness that Marcus would later recognize as practiced, the walk of a woman who had learned to hold herself together in public no matter what was crumbling underneath. She introduced herself and then crouched beside the little girl and said softly that this was her daughter, Zara, who was 5 years old and had refused, absolutely refused, to stay with the babysitter tonight because the babysitter had once turned off a cartoon before it ended, and Zara had not forgiven her for it. Marcus looked down at Zara. Zara looked up at Marcus. Her expression was deeply serious, the kind only small children and old philosophers can truly achieve. Then she asked him, without any preamble or social grace, whether he liked dinosaurs. He told her, honestly, that he thought the Brachiosaurus was deeply underrated. Zara considered this for a long moment, then nodded once and walked past him toward the table as though she had made an executive decision and he had passed some important preliminary test. Celeste exhaled. She apologized quietly, explaining that her usual babysitter had cancelled 2 hours ago and that she had almost cancelled entirely but Priya had convinced her not to, and she completely understood if this was not what he had signed up for and they could absolutely reschedule if he preferred. She said all of this quickly, with the careful dignity of someone who was prepared to be rejected gracefully. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and said that he had not eaten dinner with anyone in almost 2 years and that the company of a Brachiosaurus enthusiast sounded like an upgrade, not a problem. Something in Celeste's shoulders released. It was subtle, but Marcus noticed it, and it would stay with him for a long time afterward. They sat together at a corner table with a paper tablecloth and crayons that the waitress brought over with a kind smile when she saw Zara. And slowly, imperfectly, unexpectedly, the evening began to unfold. Celeste told him about her life in careful fragments, the way people do when they have been burned before and have learned to offer information slowly rather than all at once. She had moved to the city 3 years ago, after Zara's father had made it clear that fatherhood was not something he intended to stay for. She had done it alone, the diapers and the midnight fevers and the first day of preschool where Zara had cried for 40 minutes and Celeste had cried in the parking lot for 60. She had built a life out of will and overtime shifts and a tiny apartment that she had painted yellow because she needed at least one thing in her world to feel like sunlight. Marcus listened. He did not interrupt, did not offer solutions, did not try to fix anything. He had learned, through his own quiet failures, that sometimes what people need most is simply to be heard without judgment. He told her about his own life too, the marriage that had slowly grown into something neither he nor his ex-wife recognized anymore, the mutual decision to let it go before bitterness took root, the strange hollow freedom that followed. He told her that he had spent the last 2 years becoming reacquainted with himself, learning what he actually enjoyed versus what he had simply agreed to, and that it was a stranger process than he had expected. Across the table, Zara drew a remarkably detailed brachiosaurus on the paper tablecloth and slid it toward Marcus without comment. He thanked her gravely and folded it into his jacket pocket. Zara went back to coloring. Celeste watched this exchange with an expression that Marcus could not quite name, something tender and careful, like a person watching a fragile thing and willing it not to break. The dinner stretched past the appetizers and through the main course and deep into dessert, which Zara ate with enormous focus and a chocolate ring around her mouth that Celeste wiped away with a mother's practiced efficiency. They talked about everything and nothing, books and neighborhoods and the precise moment a person knows their houseplant is beyond saving. The restaurant filled and then began to empty. The waitress refilled their water glasses without being asked, the small mercy of a woman who recognized something worth not interrupting. At one point, Zara climbed off her chair and stood beside Marcus and asked him to draw a pterodactyl because she had heard they were hard and she wanted to see if he could do it. He tried his best. The result was, objectively, terrible, something that looked more like a broken umbrella than a prehistoric creature. Zara studied it for a long moment and then patted his arm with the solemn compassion of someone delivering difficult news and said that it was okay because drawing was not for everyone. Celeste laughed. It was a real laugh, unguarded and surprised, and Marcus thought it was the best sound he had heard in a very long time. Walking out into the night air afterward, with Zara half asleep against Celeste's shoulder, the conversation slowed into something quieter. Celeste said, standing on the sidewalk under the yellow glow of the street lamp, that she needed him to know something. She said that Zara was not a detail or a footnote. She was the whole story, the entire reason for every decision Celeste made and every risk she did or didn't take. She was not looking for someone to merely tolerate her daughter. She was looking for someone who understood that loving her meant understanding what she carried, and that what she carried was the most important thing in her world. She said it plainly and without apology, the way a person speaks when they have finally stopped shrinking themselves to fit into spaces too small for who they actually are. Marcus stood quietly for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded paper tablecloth with Zara's brachiosaurus on it and said that anyone who drew dinosaurs this seriously deserved to be taken seriously. And then he said that he had not felt this present, this fully, genuinely present, in longer than he could remember. He said he didn't know what came next and he wasn't going to pretend otherwise. But he knew that he did not want this night to be the only one. Celeste looked at him for a long moment, this man she had met only hours ago, this stranger who had folded her daughter's drawing into his pocket like it mattered, and she allowed herself, carefully and cautiously, to believe that maybe not every risk ended in wreckage. Zara slept through all of it, unbothered, dreaming something that made her smile slightly, her butterfly clip catching the light. Before this story ends, drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever met someone unexpected who changed everything? Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Marcus drove home that night through quiet streets with the paper dinosaur on his passenger seat. He did not eat dinner standing over the kitchen sink. He sat at his table, properly, with a glass of water and the lamp turned on, and he thought about second chances and the strange geography of courage, and how sometimes the thing that complicates a moment is also the thing that makes it matter most. He thought about a little girl who had handed him a drawing without expecting anything in return. He thought about a woman who carried the whole world on her shoulders and had still shown up, still walked through the door, still tried. Outside, the city hummed its ordinary nighttime hum. Inside, something quiet was beginning. If this story moved your heart, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in love and new beginnings, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House, because every story here is a reminder that kindness finds its way home.